Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. In this video, I'll be teaching you about mouse area. Now, first let's see why do we need a mouse area, right? So, suppose this is the window. Here's a rectangle, right, with some color in it, right? Now, what we want to achieve is that when we click on this rectangle, right, when we click on anywhere in this rectangle, the color of this changes, or some text appears here, or something happens, right, or the color of another like rectangle changes, right, when we click over here, or let's say when our mouse hovers around this rectangle, right, hovers like when our mouse hovers around this rectangle, the color changes or something happens to the text, like something related to the mouse, like on any mouse action, like on pressing this rectangle or something, some change appears, right? Now so far we have learned that this can be achieved with using buttons, right? But besides buttons, we can also do this to other components like rectangles, images, and something with something called a mouse area, right? So let's learn what that is. So first, this is our basic application. Let's build a rectangle component, give it some color. Uh, let's say we give it red, and let's give it some width and height so it's visible. And let's place it at the center of the parent. I hope this part is clear to you. Like if you are having trouble with anchors and learning what this is, right, you can like see my previous videos and you will like get a good understanding of what anchors is, how they work, right, and something similar. So right now let's first run the application first. Let's see what happens. Also please avoid any background noise, like sorry, some event is going on in my area. See, now if you click on this rectangle, nothing happens, right? But we want that if you click on it, the background color changes. Like let's work with something simple, like on clicking on this rectangle, anywhere in this rectangle, right, the background color of this rectangle changes. So how can we achieve this? We can do this using something called a mouse area. It's a component called mouse area. First you have to say, hey, how much is the width and the height? We'll say, hey, it will fill the parent, right? Mouse area will fill the parent, like so. And like I'll tell you what this is, like what, like see, uh, let's say let's say this is a rectangle, right? Over this we are applying another component, like exactly filling it. I'm like giving it some width, like more space so it's visible. But let's say there is a component over this rectangle, right? It's not visible, it's transparent, and on that component, like you can apply some properties. What do you mean by that? It has some properties like on clicked. When you click on this mouse area, this signal is fired, right? And what do you want to achieve? Let's say we give the rectangle some ID. Let's say R rect, right? Now you want to change the color of this rectangle, right? So we'll say R rect dot color is q dot rgba. I hope you know what this is, right? It's it's red, green, and blue, and A is like opacity. I've thought about it in the previous video. And if you don't give the opacity, it will take a default value of 1. So it will be fully like opaque, like there will be no transparency, right? So uh, now let's try running it. Now if you click on it, the color changes, right? What happens is, in the rectangle there is a layer which covers the rectangle, right? For example, let's say you have a box and you are putting a cloth over the box, right? Or you are putting a cover over the box, or you are putting a cover over the table, and this is the front part of the table, right? So what happens is, when you click on the table, you are actually clicking on the cover, not the table, right? Or for example, let's say you have a box, right? Just a minute. Let's say there is a box, right, and you're putting a piece of paper over the box. So like right now it's like completely filling the box. So whenever you click on this box, you're actually clicking on the paper, right? So you can think of it like that. Now you don't have to always fill it. You can also give it some specific width and height. Let's say I give it a height of 50 and place it in the center in parent. So now if you run the application once, if you just click on the center, you'll see the color changing. But if you click on the corners, right, something around the corners, right, you'll see the color won't change. Like I'm clicking but nothing is happening, because the mouse area is like here. Like, let me draw it. Like, let's say this is a rectangle, this is the mouse area, the cover over the rectangle, right? So if you click on it, the whole color of this rectangle changes. If you click anywhere outside, the color won't change, right? So now there are also some more properties, like besides on click, there is something called on pressed. And as you have guessed it, it's like pressing, like holding the mouse, like you click and you hold it, right? So let's say on pressed, we give the color to be something fixed, like let's say q.rgba. No, like we give some fixed color, right? It will be equal to, because this is a JavaScript code, so the color will be something like, hmm, what is this? Okay, it's like bluish. Let's see. Like I'm clicking on it, but see, it was actually I had to press it. Like I'll show you again if I uncomment this code. See, when I click one time, right, the color will change. But when I click and press it, like the color will be blue. Now I'm clicking and pressing it, so the color is blue. Now I release the press and I click it again, like the color will change. But when I click and hold it, it will be blue, right? So this is on pressed. There is also something called on double click. You can also give it some fixed color. Let's give it some fixed color. Let's say A6, F6, F5. What is this? Light blue. Okay. Now double click is something like two clicks which are very fast. See, it's now if you like observe carefully, what happens is when you double click, actually this on click is also fired and then on double click happens, right? So there is a way of like stopping this one. Like if you only want on double click, you can set a timer here, and after the timer is complete, you will see that whether double click also appeared or not, right? I'll show you this in a later video. Like this is a bit more complicated, but you can do it. Like what I'll tell you what the problem is. Like if you double click it, you'll see that if you see that a color changes, right? Like this signal fires, we get a random color and then we get a fixed color, right? Because when you double click, double clicking is nothing but clicking twice, right? So this signal is fired before this signal. So if you only want that, if you want that only, like when I double click, only this signal is received, right? And we skip this one, we can use something called a timer. I will show you later. Like it's a simple thing. So what timer is that after on click happens, we'll wait for like 1 millisecond and see if we also double clicked. If we double clicked, we skip this. If we do not double click, we do this work, right? So I'll show you that later. But right now there is something also on hover changed. Now what is hovering? It's like when you place the mouse around this, but you do not like click or something, like there is no action, just your mouse is like moving around this rectangle, right? So that is hover. On hover changed. This is not a good signal. Like I'll show you a better version of this. Let's say we also do random RGB stuff, right? No, I think it's better to give a fixed color. Like just a minute. Let's say we give a fixed color of light blue. Like come on, yeah. See, also for hover to be like the signal to be active, there is a property called hover enabled, and we set it to true. Now this hovering property will work, right? Let's say it in action. Also the width and height is 50, so be careful of that. Like if you move around the corners, nothing will happen. But if I go inside, you will see that the color is blue, right? And if you click once and again move the cursor, the color is again blue. See, the problem is like when you like let me just fill it. I think that will be better. Anchors.fill parent. Yeah, I'll tell you what the problem is. See, initially it's red. When I go inside, it's blue. I click, color changes. Now when I leave, the color again changes to blue, right? When I click, the color changes. Now when I leave, it changes to blue, right? That's happening because this hover changed works every time you like move inside and you move outside, right? So that's a bit problematic. Like for example, if you have seen buttons, like when I hover inside, I want the color to change, and when I move outside, I want it to reset, right? So that's why we have two properties. Instead of this one, we can use that. One is called on entered, that is when the mouse enters, right? Then we change the color to blue, and the other is on exited. Right now, like we don't want anything to happen when we exited. Let's see. See, when I enter, the color is blue. When I okay, let me click, and when I go outside, nothing happens. Again, when I enter, the color is blue. I click, we get a random color. When I leave, nothing happens. Again, when I enter, the color is blue. I click, the color changes, right? And as you've guessed, on exited works similarly. But when you leave the rectangle, like when your mouse leaves the rectangle, this signal is fired, right? So these are all the properties like you will need. One is clicked, one is pressed, double clicked, hovered, but this is not good. Instead you should be using these two like signals, right? One is on entered, on exited. Now I keep on saying signals, like I'll tell you what signals exactly are, but think of it like when you're working with MouseArea, when you click, some action occurs, right? And this is used to like this signal is like we reach this part of the code when that action takes place, right? And then we execute this line of code. So I'll tell you signals and slots like a bit later when we like combine this CPP file like the backend with the UI part, the front end, right? So for now, like you can see like how MouseArea works, right? Now, if you have like guessed like the MouseArea, what it actually does is there's a component, and on clicking on it, it does some action, right? So this is basically like a button, right? We can like also build a rectangle, have some text here, and then on clicking it, some action occurs, right? So why do we need a button then, right? There's a famous meme going on like in HTML. If you see, they say that instead of using a button, like we use a div and then we set a class as button, right? So now this is exactly the same. Like instead of using a button component, like instead of using this button component, right, we can set a rectangle, and inside that rectangle we have some text, and this rectangle also has some background, right, with the color property, and then we set a MouseArea. So this is basically like a button, right? Now should we be doing this? Like I think semantically we shouldn't do this, right? Because button signifies a meaning, like there is a semantic meaning. Like if you use a rectangle, like you have to name the id something. I think that is not a good practice. But yeah, this is more powerful than a button because this MouseArea has some extra properties. One such property is to change the cursor shape. Like there is a cursor shape, and you will use q dot. Okay, this, yeah, this one pointing hand cursor, right? I actually forget this one, but yeah, now I'll show you what this is. Like when you enter the rectangle and this MouseArea, the cursor shape will change. Like see, this is a pointing figure. This is not normal in button, right? So if you want to achieve the same in button, you also have to use a MouseArea inside that button. I'll show you. I know this will be very a bit long. I'll set it at the bottom and give some bottom margin of let's say 30, and let's see. See, okay, I forgot to set the horizontal set. I hope you guys know what this is, right? If you have any problems with for how anchors work and how to like understand this part, right? I've already made two videos on this. You can like watch my playlist. I think this is video number 5 or 4, because yeah, if you see the mouse cursor does not change, but here it changes, right? So if you want to achieve the same here, you can use a mouse area and then set the cursor shape, right? So that's why I was saying like this meme, like instead of people like don't use buttons but use a div and then set a classes button. In our case, we'll set a rectangle and then set the IDS button, but that's not good practice, right? Instead, we should use a mouse area here and keep the component name as button, right? This is good practice because like it's easier to understand what the functionality is. Like by looking at this, we can say, hey, this is a button, and here, like in the mouse area, like we can also set the on exited, on clicked. By the way, button also has a signal called on clicked, right? If you guys know, we can set the text, let's say to clicked or something, right? Forget the spelling, please. Yeah, here also has this also has a signal called on clicked, right? Now what happens is, since this is outside it, if you look at it, this is the parent, this is the child. So this signal will always face more priority than this one, right? So for example, let's say this fills the button, right? Yeah, if this fills the parent, then we click on this button, right? This signal will be reached, like will be here, right? Here will be here, and whatever we write here will be executed, and this will be skipped. That's because this is inside the button, right? So this has more Z index. I hope you guys know what Z index is. This is like for example, how do I scroll here? Yep. Okay, see, suppose this is a rectangle, right? Over here, when you place a button, you'll see that the button is visible and the rectangle just goes behind it, right? It's like this rectangle is a background and this button is placed over the background, right? Mouse area works the same. If this is the button, the mouse area is placed over this button, right? So that's why when you click on this, the action of the mouse area takes place and not the action of the button, right? That's what I call by Z index. Like this mouse area is placed over this button, so this signal is given more priority than this signal, right? Obviously, if you set some width and height, then like you get it, right? If you have a width of 50, height of 50, then when you place, like when you click on this mouse area, this will be fired, otherwise this will be fired, right? I hope you're getting this. If you need more explanation, I'll make a different video regarding this, but always remember that mouse area, if placed inside this button, you should always handle the on click signal here and not outside. So I hope this part is clear. Like I'll be making a video regarding a project, so we'll be using mouse area there extensively, right? That's why I taught this here. Anyway, thank you for watching and have a nice day.